speaking of movies, because if we forget one of the big things we said we were going to talk about, and I know we're a little late to the table because everybody's kind of giving their 2 cents, but we wanted to give our 2 cents on Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because that fits the bill for us in every which way. It's a kung fu movie based on a kung fu comic book, and so you've seen it, right?
I have seen it.
Great. So maybe you can kind of give your little review, your thoughts on it. What do you think about it?
I was so glad that I didn't have to write it. I mean, I wanted to write a review of it, but I was so glad I didn't have to, because then I could just like luxuriate in enjoying it without having to be critical. So I think that says a lot. I mean, I think the fact that like walking away, I couldn't help but feel as though the first half of it was just a kung fu.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, like it just by virtue of the fact that a Marvel movie got me to forget it was a Marvel movie, that was a victory right there.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that it took a very, and which was really interesting, because I had the good fortune of talking to Jean Luen Yang, who's writing the current comic series for Shang Chi. And like the one thing he said to me about it was how he is often, how can I say it? Like he really wanted to give Shang-Chi internality, right? He wanted to give him a very much a personal life and get him away from like the stereotypes of the martial artist. And so I remember him mentioning how gratified he was that even though the movie is a very different origin story, a very different scenario, they were still striving for that same concept of giving the character Shang-Chi, more than just, the title Master of Kung Fu, right? So I think in that sense, Marvel was super smart in like not even titling the movie Master of Kung Fu, and just really, giving the character his own autonomy on that level, and then just like building the character up as an MCU character rather than like an adaptation of a Marvel property. Sure. So I thought that was really kind of unique in terms of like, because I mean, as a movie, it was a great Iron Fist adaptation. Like the heart of the dragon was totally out of Iron Fist. Yeah. But there was no resemblance to an Iron Fist movie. Well,
I don't know if you saw the Iron Fist TV show, and I know it's I have to give my real opinion. We got an Iron Fist TV series, but this was the Iron Fist movie we all deserved. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It transcended both, right? It became something like the MCU does not need an Iron Fist, because their Shang-Chi really slots in to capture like that genre. I mean, okay, well, what's your thought on how it went full kaiju in the third act?
To be honest, for me, I would have rather they held off for like a second movie or something to go that far. I felt like there was enough for them to unpack up to that point, and I was and I kind of got a little bit lost in the spectacle at that point. I love the first 2/3 of the movie. Once they got into the mystical stuff, I understand it's a big blockbuster, but I felt, there's a certain, for me personally, even in the comic books, sometimes I enjoyed the street level characters the most because it felt like the stakes were the highest, and because the stakes were the highest, it was the most interesting characters. Like I found, like a Daredevil story where he's fighting the Kingpin way more interesting sometimes than some of the Avengers stories, just because depending on who was on the creative team at the time, it just seemed more interesting. So for me, the whole full kaiju, monster spectacle, it didn't feel earned to me. I would have liked to have seen a couple, at least one full movie where it was a little bit more street level, and then he graduates to that next level. But I think, Marvel movies definitely have their agenda in terms of the bigger picture of what they're trying to tell and the roadmap of where they're trying to get to, and maybe that's why they did it. What did you think about the whole mystical creature portion?
I mean, I'm a huge fan for all mythology, and then Asian mythology in particular. So to be able to see, a Kirin in its natural environment. What was that little chicken pig thing? That was probably like a little pigu maybe, or something like that. I forgot. So I mean, in terms of like seeing those concepts realized, delightful. You know, I was getting epic, never-ending story vibes from The Guardian. You know, so
that's a very good point. I didn't think about that, but you're right. That was very similar, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was so. I think there was like that kind of wish fulfillment just had to be in there. You know, so in that sense, I kind of enjoyed that. The one thing I do think Marvel has a problem with is the faceless hordes, you know, like,
oh yeah,
you know, and I mean, it's not just Marvel, it's just like superhero movies are getting trapped by that Lord of the Rings convention of a faceless horde.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be like, that's always going to be a minefield until they figure out what to do differently. And they could have done it, you know, like, why couldn't they have done a Big Trouble in Little China style, like cheap projections of them as like giant, you know, holographic warrior versions of themselves to fight the demon? You know, why couldn't that demon be more like a, you know, the horse head guardian of the gates of hell from Chinese mythology? You know, like they were so close, they could have gone a little bit more into it, but then they zig instead of zagging, I guess.
No, that's very true. And I'm glad you brought up Big Trouble in Little China, because of course one of the best, and probably hands on the best American martial arts movie of all time. And I think what they got is the hordes had faces. I mean, it was like a rogues gallery. I mean, they made sure when you're watching the movie, you see the hordes of people and the goons. You saw all the very unique faces, right? You saw the Al Leongs and the, you know, all those guys there. And yeah, when it's a faceless mob of kind of, you know, goons or, you know, just foot soldiers, it just doesn't, you know, I'd say when you were comparing to some of it, like when you think about Lord of the Rings, they made sure to have shots where they zoomed in on the individual orcs' faces and you could see how different each of them looked and see their personalities come off, even if it was just for a little shot. But usually when a lot of the Marvel movies get to that, it's all the exact same looking kind of stormtrooper character.
Yeah, well, you know, the most egregious offender in the case of Faceless Hordes would be the first Suicide Squad movie.
Oh my, literally, right?
Where it just, like, they literally were just like, okay, Faceless Hordes. I mean, I think the second Suicide Squad redeemed it because they returned to the canon and actually delivered in, like, you know, what the original Faceless Horde should have been like, you know?
And Starro, I mean, come on.
Exactly. But I think with Shang-Chi, I think it was definitely like the Marvel, like leaning into the Marvel formula of everyone's needs their little moment, give Awkwafina a chance to do something with her bow and arrow, and you know, and then just a little bit of hand waving, you know. By that time, I mean, the real climax was Shang-Chi versus his father. You know, that was the true combat. So the kaiju stuff after it just was, you know, serves the other masters, I guess.
Yeah, I could have gone with the end fight being strictly him and Wenwu fighting, and Tony Leung just killed it. I mean, it was amazing to see him speaking in an English speaking role, and just see how he was so successfully able to bring all that charisma and charm and just his depth of his acting. To me, he was my favorite part of the film. He was amazing. So that was really cool.
Oh, I agree. I mean, especially considering the ignoble origins of the Shang-Chi property.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, they just knew that they had to redeem that, and you know, every step of the way, like every casting choice, I think was to that end. You know, to give that sense of legitimacy to it. You know, so to have Tony Leung be like, you know, the progenitor in there, that was awesome. You know.
Absolutely. And you know, for those people watching that aren't aware, I mean, I think some of the idea was conveyed, but choreography wise, it was very clever, right? Which was Tony Leung's character did a lot of the more hard, aggressive styles of Kung Fu. And the mother was Tai Chi through and through. And if you understand the two is that balance of that yin yang kind of balance, I thought that was expertly choreographed and really done well by Brad Allen. I wish they would have maybe given a nod a little bit more, explain that more to the audience so they could benefit more from that philosophy of the whole thing. But I always look at things through the eyes of somebody who teaches Kung Fu. So I always want to hear them say, Master of Kung Fu. I always want them to say, this is Tai Chi, because of course I have a skin in the game, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think of it as like, we all know that people are going to be coming to that movie and they're going to see that and they're going to say waterbending, airbending, you know, like there's already kind of a pop culture lexicon that those who know it covers real territory, right?
Yeah.
There's true Kung Fu mastery behind the choices of what, you know, of how waterbending was depicted versus airbending. So in a sense, like Marvel benefited from that work already being done, you know, and they could have added to that language a little more. You know, they kind of like played it safe. Boy, the more I talk about this movie, the more I sound like I didn't like it. But I liked it, you know.
Well, you're analyzing it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And you know, on that note about the martial arts, like that's the thing. That's why one of the big reasons why I'm doing my Kung Fu comic book is, it's like, I will say this is Tai Chi. I will say this is here, and I will explain the philosophy. You know, like in martial arts and in Kung Fu, you know, basics, foundation is the key, right? Stances are the key. And even in my first issue, I have a sequence where the main character is practicing their stances. You know, and you know, those things are important because that's kind of part of the journey that's not always told, right? You know, I always tell my Kung Fu students that, you know, you watch the movies and you see the training montage, which lasts 5 minutes to a music. And it's kind of like, okay, well, it can't be that hard. Well, there is a montage, but the montage lasts about 10 years in real life. And when people realize that, they're not as quick to continue the journey, if that makes sense.
It's true. I mean, you can kind of tell based on their movie preferences as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many people will gravitate towards the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style of Kung Fu movie, where it's the sword, the magic sword does the trick, you know? Yeah. And then on the other end of the spectrum is like Master Killer, 36 Chamber, where the whole movie is the workout, you know? And it's every step of the way, you see how much this dude suffers to get that little grain of rice. You know?
Exactly.
That's exactly the thing. It's like, how, you know, that's the balancing act, is how do you adapt the one art form via the other art form? You know?
Exactly. You know, all right. Well, everybody, take care. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time, okay?
Thank you, Patrick. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Chris.
Hello, I'm Sifu Kurtis Fujita with Tiger Crane Kung Fu. I just wanted to let everybody know that we do have an online program that we're utilizing, not just for our enrolled students that come to our physical location, but also for students who are in other states, other time zones, other countries. It's a unique program with multiple components that really help you learn Kung Fu and Tai Chi at home during the current health epidemic and beyond. So we have different components. The first part is, of course, Zoom classes. We have online Zoom classes that meet throughout the week for Kung Fu and Tai Chi. We also have a unique thing which we call our rerun program. And what that means is we record the Zoom classes and we have an archive of dozens and dozens of videos for you to access at any time, anywhere, as long as you have an internet connection. So if you missed a class, you can go ahead and follow along and check it out. Or if you want to remember something that was mentioned in class, you can go back and watch the rerun. It's an archive for all enrolled members. Also, we have personal videos. And what I mean by that is, if you film yourself doing an individual technique, you can send it to me and I'll be happy to shoot my own video with a response detailing specifically what you want to do to improve the exercise and do it most efficiently. And lastly, we even have a social club component. And what that essentially means is, you know, when you're at a gym or a martial arts studio, it's that sense of community, the ability to visit with your classmates, with your teacher after class to, socialize. So we have a social club meeting. So once a week after class, we have a Zoom session and we talk for a little bit and catch up with each other and socialize. So these are all the different components that make our unique online Kung Fu program. If you're interested, feel free to reach me at my email address. It's instructor@tigercrane.net. Again, instructor@tigercrane.net. We would love to see you in our online studio. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you, and take care.